I don't really go on about this very much at all, but I think being a woman in business has had its challenges.
So the point of this chat is to talk to you about your journey in starting the Law Boutique, and to hear about, what led you to start it, what it's been like running your own Law Boutique, and I guess what you wish you'd known before you started out, really. So let's start by talking about what the Law Boutique is.
So the Law Boutique is a legal optimization company. So we help in-house legal work more effectively and more efficiently so that they can become a commercial advantage to their organization. There's a lot of talk about legal doing less with more, and we think that's not good enough. I think what we need to be thinking about is how do we turn this team that's usually looked upon as a blocker, as a bottleneck, how do we transform it into a commercial advantage? Having worked in-house for 10 years, I see a lot of problems with the way that legal in-house perceives itself and also how the business perceives it. And I think the reasons for that are quite distinct and also really common across the board. So I think if we just start talking about those problems, a lot of it is to do with mindset, mentality, ways of working, not really knowing how to build a team that's going to help the business grow. If we can help to talk about these things and start to fix them, then we'll see a transformation, not only for lawyers that are going to an in-house function, but also for businesses, because I think that lawyers are just not reaching their full potential in-house, and businesses aren't reaping the benefits of having quite an expensive function there. So the whole purpose is to reimagine the way that legal in-house works.
So how did you make the transition from working in-house to starting the Law Boutique?
So I worked in-house for 10 years, and to be quite honest, every job I had, I wanted to leave after about 18 months. That was my limit. So I worked for some really cool companies, the European Space Agency, Disney, British American Tobacco, EY, some really cool names. Every time I went in after about 18 months max, I was like, this just doesn't work. There's something wrong.
I had exactly the same. There's just something about that 18-month period, isn't there? I don't know what it is, but I had exactly the same.
I wonder if it's an entrepreneur thing. It's like you like them, because I like to go in and I love the beginning where it's really hard and you don't know what you're doing and you have to learn it. And once you learn it, I'm like, now what? Next. And then I was like, well, I haven't got the opportunity maybe to grow as fast enough as I'd like. So I always knew that I wanted to start my own business. I always had this from almost from uni. I knew that I would start my own business, and I just didn't know how to do it. And then in my last stint at BAT, we did this huge negotiation and we used an external law firm. And I just thought, what a waste of time, the way that this is all being managed. And just I'm negotiating with our lawyers more than I'm negotiating with the other side, because I'm just like, please don't add language that's going to make my life hell when it comes to me managing this contract going forward. And I just thought this is just very dysfunctional. The whole legal industry is archaic, it's quite toxic, it's just too expensive. Someone needs to disrupt it. And I thought, this is what I want to do. So that's why I started the Law Boutique in 2017.
Same year as I started Stevenson Law, which is super exciting. I took the transition from being a consultant solicitor, I was in-house as well, but I was working as a consultant, to starting Stevenson Law, which feels a little bit less daunting than taking a jump from being in a sort of employed, secure, relatively stable position. How did you kind of get to the point where you felt brave enough to hand your notice in and leave?
I was also a contractor.
Okay.
I've always been a contractor. I was only employed by Disney. All the other jobs I've had, I've always been a contractor. So I think you're right. It just feels a bit less daunting. But the contracts that I had were long-term. They were secure. I was working with a team that I knew really well. You know what it's like in contracting. You always get, you've got connections and they bring you into different things. But I just thought, I cannot be jumping from job to job every 18 months. And the reason I'm jumping from job to job is probably because I want to grow faster than is permissible as a contractor or even as an employee. But also, I just think that the reason that I want to do that is because this is very dysfunctional and things need to change.
Yeah, sounds like we were both on very similar pages at the same time, Electra. If only we'd known each other then, what a great support we would have been to each other. Because I think that's one of the things that I struggled with the most when I was doing it, is actually not really having anyone that I could talk to about it. It was really quite lonely. And I remember like just trying to Google everything just to try and get some advice, some support, try and just find some stories of people that had done something similar to what I'd done, and just sort of hitting a bit of a brick wall, really.
Same. I felt very lonely. I felt like everyone but me found it very uninteresting as well. You know, it is law. It's not like you're inventing something really cool, like a gadget that's going to change your life in the kitchen or something. It's law, so it's not the most exciting thing to talk about. And I felt like when I did talk to my friends about it, they were like, okay.
They didn't get it.
No, they didn't get it. It's not their fault, but they just didn't get it.
Yeah. So that was 2017. So what's it been like since you made the plunge and the Law Boutique was up and running?
Yeah, so initially when I started, I didn't really have the gravitas, I suppose, because I was a one-woman band, to go straight into bigger businesses. So I started helping much smaller businesses, and usually other one-man, one-woman bands. So I was supporting them with kind of setting up their legal function and doing it in a way that was scalable, I suppose. So let's not draft T's and C's that are really, really long and horrible that everyone's going to push back on. Let's do stuff that's commercially, or that makes sense commercially. So I did that for a bit, and then within a year I'd hired one person, and then we started helping kind of tech scale ups more than tech startups. And then at the beginning of lockdown, there were 3 of us. So this time last year, there were 3 of us, and now there's 12 of us. So we've grown loads over lockdown. And I think the reason for that is that when lockdown happened, it was just such a shock to the system. All of a sudden, I thought, all this stuff that I've been doing, I've been working really, really hard to get this up and running. It could just go like this. So it's kind of, you either take a risk now or you just continue as you are. So I thought, right, I'm just going to take the risk. So we hired loads of people, and it's worked. So going back to your question around what would I do had I known what I know now when I started, I would have taken more risks at the outset. I would have just gone for it. Obviously, you can't just do that without having the experience.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I think our growth for the first 18 months was relatively slow, and then it kind of sort of reached a bit of a tipping point where everything just started to move a lot quicker. We've grown so fast, and it's been a bit strange. I don't know how you found it, but seeing everybody making redundancies and cutting salaries and laying people off over lockdown, and actually it's been a real opportunity for us to adapt and evolve and grow and show why we're different.
It has. It's been good for some industries. I think ours is a good example of that. But yeah, it's been really weird as well, a bit surreal, quite stressful but mundane at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what's the most stressful parts of what you do?
People, relationships, managing people that are managing people, trying to make sure that you're hitting the right dynamic. I've not done this before. Lots of entrepreneurs haven't ever done this before, so it's all new to you, and you're trying to be the best in your business because you think that's your job. You're trying to be the best in your business without any experience, and that's really tough. And sometimes it feels like, you can't be as vulnerable as you'd like, because that's going to make other people feel like they can't lean on you, and that's your job. So that bit is tough. I think the emotional side has been the toughest out of everything.
Obviously, what you're doing is similar in a lot of ways to what I'm doing, in the sense that we're trying to do something within the industry that's different, that's innovative, that's trying to sort of improve things. Have you experienced any resistance to what you're doing?
Definitely. I think I was doing it was like a panel discussion last year, and I actually got heckled when I talked about legal design. I talked about how having a simpler contract is just better for business, and someone heckled me, basically said that's not very good lawyering if you can't write a really complex contract, because we're all about simplicity and making things more accessible to people. And yeah, there are lawyers out there and people in business out there that don't want to simplify law, don't want to have something that's consumer friendly, because quite frankly, it suits them. It's easier to charge loads of billable hours when other people don't understand what it is that you've just done. But yeah, that our business is very much based on the premise that law does not need to be so complicated in order for it to be effective. And actually, if you do simplify, you'll probably get better results across the board. I don't really go on about this very much at all, but I think being a woman in business has had its challenges. We're building some tech and we were considering whether to go for investment. And if you look at the stats, I think it's just 1% of all investment goes to women and stuff like that. So there's always this, maybe it's not overt, but on an underlying level, I'm always thinking about how, you see a male founder and you get this feeling of, they'll probably have better chances than you just because of who they are. Yeah. So that's been something that maybe I've tried to overcompensate for a bit, which again has its stresses and yeah.
So what's the big plan? What's the next sort of 5 years hopefully going to look like?
I think that the next 5 years are about really making our mark in the industry. And another thing that's kind of not held me back, but something that I'm always worried about is that, we're a small legal boutique consultancy. We talk about legal optimization. Do people even know about that? What we're doing is quite new. How do we compare against the big law firms? Are people going to trust us as a brand, etc.? So it's about getting over all of that, establishing ourselves in the industry and building something that people want to work for and want to work with. So I'm not really interested in blitz scaling and super fast growth with a view to exit. That's not what we're about. It's more about building something more organically and that's more sustainable. I think that the legal industry is so archaic. You get a few companies that come in and they just want to scale really, really quickly and exit. I don't know whether those companies are really going to make their mark in the industry, because I think that there's a lot of re-education to be had, and that's a slow process. Changing behaviours is slow. So I feel like we need to stick at it if we're going to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one of the things that I think is really important is to try and encourage more women to start their own businesses in the legal industry, because we see so many women leaving the industry altogether, and I really want them to start seeing starting their own business as an alternative to leaving the industry. So what advice would you give to a woman who was perhaps a bit lost in the legal industry and considering leaving it altogether?
Quite honestly, starting your own business is not for everybody. So I wouldn't feel pressured to start my own business if it wasn't really for me, if that makes sense, because it's tough, right? It's really tough. And I don't want anyone to underestimate that and think, I'm just going to go and start my own little business and it's going to be fun and fun. It's not. It's going to be horrible at the beginning. For a lot of you need to be ready for that. But I think that once you overcome that, it's the most rewarding thing ever. You can go at your own pace. You can surround yourself with people that you want to surround yourself. Once you're over your imposter syndrome, which will 100% come, unless you're a psychopath, it will come. Once you're over that as much as possible, then you'll be able to choose your clients. You'll be able to be more direct with people that you employ. So I think those are things that you would need to prepare yourself for. But if you're ready to take the plunge, take it. Otherwise, another thing that you could do is just be a freelancer. feel free to reach out to me. I will more than happily introduce you to people, and I think we need to build a stronger network to support other women that want to come into the ecosystem of female founders in the legal industry. But yeah, what I would say is just do it. I mean, what do you have to lose, really?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's better to try something, isn't it, than to always regret not trying something.